life lawyer, and I'm going to talk to you about artificial intelligence. What effect do we think it's going to have on the law? Uh, the legal profession is one of those professions that is very hesitant to change, to advance with technology. There are lawyers who still use Word Perfect instead of Word or Google Docs or anything like that. I know lawyers who still have paper files and they write things down on paper in every case when there is absolutely no requirement to do so. In fact, you have to file things with courts electronically. That's actually been mandated by the state. That took forever as well, long before it was reasonable to mandate that. Or I'm sorry, it was reasonable to mandate that long before that was actually mandated. So, just in general, what you need to know about lawyers in a discussion about AI is that we're really slow on the transition for technology. Well, as a group, we're really slow. Some of us are better at it than others. And today we're going to be discussing transactional law, contracts, litigation, legal research, and then finally criminal law, which is the area that I practice. Maybe I'm biased, but I think it's going to be the most resistant to AI taking over. And I'll tell you why as we go through. Okay, so let's start with transactional law and contracts. So, transactional law contracts, this is like when you hire a lawyer to help you with a business agreement. Let's say you are a farmer, you want to sell corn to HEB, and you want a non-compete clause. You want to be the sole provider of corn to HEB. That way, you know that all of your product is going to get bought. HEB wants you to supply enough corn to meet their needs so that they can always have it there for their clients or their customers who come in and want to buy, all their other groceries. Then get good corn there at HEB too. So you got to put things in this contract, like things that what's going to happen if you have a dispute. Are you going to go to arbitration? Are you going to go to mediation? Are you going to just file a lawsuit and make it more costly? There's lots of ins and outs of those things that you don't necessarily know if you're a farmer, and you don't necessarily know if you're HEB. HEB probably has some internal lawyers that look at that stuff too. But maybe they could just have an internal AI lawyer, right? So for the beginning part of law, you have some agreement between people. There's always an agreement before there's a disagreement, typically in transactional law and contracts. Everybody wants to make the contract. And then when they realize the contract sucks for them for some reason, that's when they want out of it. And that's when it matters if you had a good lawyer write the contract who knows how the law is going to be interpreted, how specific provisions of contracts. You might have a provision in your contract that's been illegal for decades, but you found a form online and it said it was okay. This is the biggest problem with like LegalZoom, things like that. We already have seen AI, kind of working in this. The law is pretty formulaic. Everybody has access to the same statutes, and a statute is the law as it's written out by a legislature. So, for example, there's a Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC, which governs contract law. There's case law that's out there. Everybody knows what the law is. The question is applying it to your situation. And there's lots of new, interesting situations that people bring up all the time. Well, they have, just like you have someone that can prepare your taxes, like, TurboTax, they have LegalZoom already. The problem is when the LegalZoom document that is made is no good, then you have to hire a real lawyer to fix the problem. And that's a lot more expensive than just hiring a lawyer to do it right the first time. So I'm not trying to say LegalZoom is AI. I'm smart enough. I've used ChatGPT. I use it for some of our web content to help write some of the basics for those things. But I have noticed in my use of ChatGPT that if you tell it to get a little too complicated with law, specifically into case law, where you're looking at something that a judge has decided, which has affected the law, it is not very good at that. Certainly not right now. Maybe it's going to get better, but I've actually seen ChatGPT flat out make up a case. I don't think it made up the name of the case, but it made up that it was applicable to the question that I asked it. And that's been related to criminal law. Again, maybe it's better at contract law and things like that. I think it's definitely going to get better as we move into the future. But most of what a good contract lawyer is going to be doing with you is asking you questions about your business and what thinking about all the problems that can go wrong and all the experience that they have when somebody with your temperament in your area of the country, is trying to work out a deal. What problems are they going to have? What problems are you likely to have? And that's why you have different contract lawyers that are specialized in different areas. um, what I think it can do is help the lawyer. And this is where I think the biggest effect of AI is going to be on lawyers is the type of lawyer that is the assisting lawyer. So, like, I own my own law firm. It's me, right? I'm the head of that law firm. So, if I hire an associate attorney, they're going to kind of do what I say to assist me when I go into the courtroom. Okay. It's that courtroom presence where AI is going to have less of an effect. When you have to go to court, you need a human lawyer with a law license from the state to represent you. You can't be asking a computer for the right answer. I mean, I guess you could, but that would look pretty awkward, and it's not going to be very effective. So, but that lawyer who goes into court, sometimes in contract, transactional law, oil and gas, anything that involves big companies with or large law firms, they have teams of lawyers to do document review and things like that. All of those lawyers can be replaced by AI, or at least a significant number of them can be replaced by AI. It can make their life and the work that they do a lot easier. So I think these bigger firms are going to start getting smaller and they're going to have less associate positions available. So those people coming out of law school making 130 to 200,000 a year, in these research based positions where they're just working day and night, um, they're going to be affected quite a bit. But that main lawyer is probably not. So again, form contracts is our next bullet point here. Those have been available for a long time. Let's say if you rent an apartment out to somebody, if you are doing that, like in the state of Texas, they have a state agency that promulgates forms for you to fill out, and you kind of check the boxes that apply to you. And it's 90% of the time it's fine. And people aren't getting lawyers already for that kind of stuff. It's not all the basics of law have already been sort of pushed into this. It might just make it a little bit faster for you if you can get an AI chatbot to say, "Hey, can you use this state approved form as a basis?" But again, you have to know to do that. Maybe the AI can get smart enough where it suggests that it should do that, or it thinks that it should do that. But I'll tell you who's not going to be helping program these AIs is lawyers. We're pretty smart about business and things like that. Lawyers are pretty protectionist about the field of law. And if you want a really cynical view on why I think AI is less likely to affect the legal field than most others, is because if it really starts affecting the bottom line for some of these big firms, they're going to be lobbying the legislature pretty darn hard to get outright bans on the use of AI in the legal community. I haven't heard of that yet, but I'm not dumb enough to think that that's not coming from these big law firms. They're not just going to give away all that money and let it slip through their hands. So, basic questions. That's our next bullet point. If you have a basic question and you need to talk to a lawyer and get an answer about a legal case, that's where AI is going to come in. And that's where the legislation might get pushed, because if an AI chatbot is practicing law, meaning it's receiving information from a client, it's giving specific advice and detailed information to that client, then that chatbot and the owners of it, whoever, if they're making money off of it or providing it from a nonprofit perspective, whoever is in ownership of that is going to get sued for the practice of law. But hopefully that won't be the case for very long, or for a long time, because I think these chatbots can be really, really effective in that. Like, you can ask it something like, can you deduct certain things from your taxes? A lot of tax law questions I think are going to get asked by small business owners to chat GPT and things like that. And it can answer some basic questions, get you in the right direction. But right now, if you start asking chat GPT, go on there, try it yourself, specific tax information, it's going to tell you we can't give you specific tax advice because it knows the lawyers are coming. And I think the AI folks are smart enough to avoid that because it's a very dangerous situation to be giving somebody tax advice. I don't give tax advice. I'm a lawyer, right? Because I'm not a tax lawyer. I'm a criminal law lawyer. If I have a client who comes to me, they have a tax question. I say, look, in general, this is the idea here with this issue. Maybe I have some education on the topic, but I would never tell them, and you should now make financial decisions because of that advice. I'll say you need to talk to a tax professional, a CPA, or a tax lawyer. And then let's talk about family law. So, family law is a really emotional type of law that's practiced. The clients are going through probably the worst thing that's going to happen to them from a mental health standpoint in their life. Um, Short of maybe a very very serious criminal case. I think a low level criminal case is a lot less stressful than a divorce or a child custody issue. And so a chatbot can be helpful in answering the multitude of questions. I know my family law lawyer friends will say that they get clients asking them the same question over and over and over again. They have to keep reminding them, no, we really are not going to get a no child support at all issue, or no, the court isn't just going to cut out the father from this child's life because he cheated on you. That's just not going to happen. And so I think maybe these chatbots could be helpful to law firms that are getting inundated with those kind of things. They could say, hey, if you have just a basic question, we have a chat feature on our website that can talk with you and give you basic advice. But that's going to be a long time coming too, because that would be a lawyer implementing AI into their own firm. That's a technology implementation by a lawyer. That's not coming anytime soon. Not in the next 10 years, I don't think. So, and this is 2023 when the video is being created. So let's check out the next topic. So the next section I want to talk about is litigation. Litigation means there's a disagreement between two parties. They're suing each other in court. A lawsuit has been filed. Technically, I guess there's some pre-litigation litigation, but I'm talking about if a lawsuit is filed. So if it's a civil hearing or a civil case for like personal injury in a car wreck, something like that, you got to have an in-courtroom hearing. Anytime that happens, you need a real lawyer. A judge is not going to listen to a chatbot on a screen. If they're having Zoom hearings, you could probably, in the next 5 or 10 years, they're probably going to have a pretty darn good, responsive lawyer you could have. But the judge is going to know they're not a real lawyer. They're not going to have a state bar license number. You're not going to get away with that. And that actually makes me think of something. Maybe a really good lawyer, will AI clone themselves and let the chat bot represent themselves to be the lawyer. That would be, you'd have to have an unethical lawyer, number one, and them to be, well enough known that they are so busy that they can't even go to these hearings. They have to have a chat bot do it for them. You might be able to do that with some ALR hearings for driver's license hearings. Those are pretty routine, but that'd be a really bad idea for the lawyer to do too. But I suppose you could do that. But in general, if you have to go to court, you need a real lawyer. AI is not going to replace that. It's just not going to do it. AI, I don't think is going to be replacing police. We're not going to have. I don't think we're going to have robot police anytime soon. We're going to have real people arresting you out in the world. You may have AI that assists in gathering that information, but it's going to be a person that actually affects the arrest. I don't think our society is ready to hand that over to the robots yet. And I know the courts are not going to be handing over courtroom hearings to robots. Translation, maybe. You might have a translation robot coming in, but we're not going to see that in the lawyers. So really any type of legal field that requires you to go into court is going to be pretty immune from it. Now, where is AI going to affect the law the most? Probably in the document analysis and the case valuation. I've already seen advertisements for this where they have AI chatbots, or not chatbots, but just AI analysis bots that will look at a personal injury case and say, here's the photos, here's the bruising, here's the medical records, look at all this, the insurance, where the accident took place, damage to the cars, and spit me out a number. What are cases like this settling for? Well, insurance companies already have people doing this stuff. They can replace all those people with uh, these these AI programs, so that actuaries, just in general, I think are going to get replaced by AI. But the plaintiff lawyer that's going to get, you know, your case filed, who's going to make the argument to the jury that you have damages that need to be given to you, it's still going to be a jury. It's not going to be an AI jury. You're still going to need that person. So the plaintiff law side is not going to be replaced, I don't think, by this. But plaintiffs lawyers can use AI to write original drafts. So let me tell you about civil litigation between big companies and in big lawsuits for personal injury. We call that torts. There will be rivers, mountains of documents, okay? Just huge numbers of documents. And you have to pay lawyers to look at those documents, read it through them, and find, stuff that's helpful to you or hurtful to your case, right? You won't have to do that anymore. You can just ask a bot to review all these documents, say, anytime it mentions these words, clip those pages, put them into a PDF, title it this. It's going to be extremely helpful for the management of all the data and documents. But after you manage it, or you tell it how to manage it, you could even ask it suggestions of how should we manage this, and it'll help you do that. But then you have to go to court. You have to argue it as the lawyer. So again, for us lawyers that are in court all the time, I've not met one that's worried about this. It's the assisting lawyers, all the new associates that are coming out of law school right now. They're going to have to open up their own shingle, and that's what we call it when you start your own law firm. It's putting out your shingle. It's kind of a dated term, but that's what we say in the law profession. I think we're going to have a lot more single lawyer firms in the future, because you're just not going to have an opportunity to do legal work. And I think we're going to see a drop in lawyers and people going to law school, because those jobs, that guaranteed high lawyer salary, is just not going to be there, because the main work of the grunt work in these civil cases done by lawyers is just not going to be there anymore. And so you're going to have a lot of really, really wealthy lawyers. It's going to make it more stratified. I'm sorry, it's going to make it less categories of income. So then we talked about case valuation. Let's look at the next topic. So legal research, we kind of already touched on this, but legal research is going to be dramatically changed. We already have Westlaw, LexisNexis, things that since I've been out of law school in 2010, we have had the ability to upload a document and have it check if all the law in your document is correct. If there's any cases that have been overruled, you're citing a precedent that has no persuasive value, something like that. All that's been available for a long time. That's not new. What's going to be new is handing the bot a motion for summary judgment, saying it's a traditional motion for summary judgment and a no evidence motion for summary judgment, and it shouldn't have been combined. It should be separated, and you have to respond to each of the arguments if there's no evidence of this point, and what's all the evidence in the case. That takes a long time for a lawyer, normally an associate attorney, to draft, for the partner to review, to then argue in court. Okay, that can probably be done by AI. Enter in the and I think that's in the next 2 or 3 years. You're going to see almost all of the motions for summary judgment. These initial drafts are all going to be AI generated. And it's okay if they suck, because it is a pain in the butt to generate one of those from nothing. No lawyer is generating them from nothing anyway. They're using an old sample motion, they're subbing in things. But if you get that AI to just write it from the beginning and then you review it, that's going to be very helpful. It's going to speed up a lot of things. And it's going to make some of the tactics that lawyers use less effective. So one of the tactics in a civil case is to drown your opponent in discovery. Again, I don't practice civil law. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that. On the criminal side, it's much easier. Another reason why I think we're going to be more immune from this. But this practice of uh, you have one bad email. Well, you don't. What civil lawyers typically don't do. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble out there. Is they don't normally just send the one bad email. They send like 50 or 1,000 emails that are all potentially responsive to the question, and then you got to go find the bad email, right? These AI, the AI research is going to be able to find that stuff and sift through it much easier. Uh, and then we talked about checking citations. That's been there. Maybe what AI can do is add additional citations instead of just checking to make sure the form citations you've been using are good. It'll run an update on that. And I think we'll see Westlaw probably featuring something like that pretty soon. Okay, and then finally, criminal law. Criminal law is extremely highly litigation based. Almost nothing happens in criminal law unless the two lawyers are present in the courtroom. Okay, this is because prosecutors are overworked almost universally. I've been a prosecutor in 4 different jurisdictions before I became a defense attorney, and only one of those jurisdictions would I say I wasn't overworked. In I was a prosecutor in Harris County, and the level of overworking that's happening there is extreme. It's on another level. Um, Felony prosecutors have something like 1,500, 1,800 cases. It's totally unmanageable, right? So you cannot be up to date and up to speed on all those cases. Okay. And because of that, they pretty much only go into court and will negotiate with you in court. Maybe AI is going to be helpful for government agencies like that and dealing with that kind of caseload. I don't. Maybe what that'll do is help summarize, and a lot of what prosecutors do is read the documents and then summarize them. If you could ask the chatbot to summarize it on its own, and then spit something out that was smaller, more condensed, more to the point, that would be pretty helpful because police officers are not particularly good at that. But I certainly don't think the government is the last type of lawyer. The government lawyer is the last type of lawyer to cross the finish line on technology. Like I said, the Department of Public Safety has was requiring us to use faxes, a fax number, to notify them officially of different driver's license hearing updates up until like last year, 2022. When's the last time you used a fax machine in any office setting? We were doing it last year. Okay, so I don't think AI is going to be helpful to government agencies. I think there's an ethical issue there. If uh, if you as a prosecutor are relying on a computer to make an offer in a case, that would be basically a separation of powers issue. You'd be delegating an extremely important role to a computer. I don't think that's going to happen either. Um, and then let's go to the next bullet point here. You can't substitute an appearance. We do not have robots that are going to go into court and make an argument for you. It's illegal because they're not licensed to practice law. If a company makes it and it makes a product that is giving specific legal advice, I think it's probably practicing law. And again, we're already seeing go ask Chat GPT a legal question. At the end of it, it might give you an answer. And then at the end of it, it's going to say, don't use this just straight up in court. Don't just, if you have a real legal question, talk to a real lawyer. And the reason for that is not because ChatGPT doesn't necessarily know the answer. It's because it can get in trouble for the unauthorized practice of law. And I think that is a big reason why we're going to see uh, the legal field not affected as much. And then, how helpful could a chat bot or an AI lawyer be in a person-to-person negotiation, or maybe email negotiation? I suppose it could do it. How helpful is it going to be when a lot of the negotiation strategy I know that I use is dependent on the prosecutor that I'm talking to? I know there's courts in our county that certain arguments are never going to fly because I know that that argument isn't going to fly in front of that judge because I've seen it 100 times. Maybe the AI is so good it's going to get trained up on that stuff about individual judges in every jurisdiction all over the world and the prosecutors, and that prosecutor is going to behave differently in one court than another court because of the way they know the judge is going to act. that's going to be pretty darn complicated. And I just don't think that's going to be very effective. I think that people, when a person is making the decision at the other end, I think AI is going to be much uh, less effective at the persuasion than another person in front of them. Because the physical presence, I can tell you just in my experience, negotiating with a prosecutor via email is a fool's errand. I don't do it unless it's absolutely necessary, because there's just no ability to sense what the other person is considering. If you're talking to a prosecutor and they're going over the case and they're reading the offense reports and things like that for the first time, you can help wade through. If I've already read the offense report, I know what it says, then I can be there and help them understand, like, okay, the officer wrote this in the beginning of the report. Let's say wrote that there was a red mark. Well, I've looked at the photos before we make a judgment about this case and give me an offer. Look at the photos before you decide that there's a red mark there. There's no red mark in any of the photos. I don't think the chatbot is going to be able to pick up on body language through an email of the prosecutor as they're reading it. So I don't think they're going to be as effective. Um, and I guess they're going to be cheaper. For sure, it'd be cheaper if you could get a robot to send an email. But again, that's going to be engaging in unauthorized practice of law, and no prosecutor is going to respond to AIlawyer.com, lawyer number 523. It's just, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. And the main reason is because the legal profession has a hold on who is allowed to do that. It happens all the time. People come in with a friend or a family member who knows something about the law. They want to start arguing on behalf. They get told, sit down, be quiet. You can't. Either this person, the defendant, argues for themselves, or they get a lawyer that's licensed by the state. The one thing that might be of assistance here is, again, you could have a much better pro se. And when I say pro se, I mean that's somebody who represents themselves in a criminal case. Being able to discuss the law back and forth with like a ChatGPT is going to be extremely helpful for somebody who cannot afford a lawyer, doesn't want to go with the court-appointed lawyer, wants to represent themselves. They may be in a better position when they actually make it to trial. And maybe some of these chatbots can make some of the points that lawyers have to make, like that argument isn't very persuasive. This is a better argument, and we'll just have to see how that develops. I'm interested to see the developments of AI. If you have a different opinion, put a comment, like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and we'll see you next time.